If you were to go back 10 or 15 years and ask somebody what they thought the first $1,000 LEGO Star Wars set would be, they'd probably look at you funny and tell you that you were crazy because there would never be a $1,000 LEGO Star Wars set. But nowadays, you'd probably be considered crazy if you didn't think that there was going to be a $1,000 LEGO Star Wars set. With these UCS sets just getting bigger and bigger, it's only a matter of time before one of them crosses the $1,000 threshold. And it's kind of a discussion topic online as to what the first $1,000 LEGO Star Wars set will be. There are some pretty good theories out there, with the most probable of them probably being that it's just going to be a remake of the UCS Falcon, but not because LEGO's going to upsize it or anything, just because of the nature of inflation. But that's not a fun answer. Nah, it would be way more interesting to talk about what ships in Star Wars could be made as a $1,000 UCS set today, not in 2030. And that's what we're going to take a look at today. By the end of this video, I will have an answer for you as to what the first $1,000 LEGO Star Wars set is probably going to be. Now, in order to be a $1,000 UCS set, I feel like there are two criteria that any ship would need to meet. It has to A, be economically feasible, and B, be structurally feasible. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, for economically feasible, I mean there's gotta be demand for it. Like, for example, you could probably pretty easily build a Gungan sub out of $1,000 worth of Lego pieces. The shape isn't too complicated, it's fairly compact, but who the heck is gonna wanna buy a Gungan bongo for $1,000 other than this guy? And by structurally feasible, I mean it has to be buildable. I'm sure that there are plenty of people who would love to buy a $1,000 Separatist landing craft, but at that point, the wings would not be able to support themselves. The Separatist landing craft has kind of a size cap on it. So yeah, if it's going to be a $1,000 UCS set, it's got to be buildable and buyable. Not to be confused with this Bible. But with those in mind, let's start narrowing down what the first $1,000 UCS set could be. Starting off, I see it theorized a lot that it could be a UCS Ghost set. I feel like this theory really stems from Brick Vault's Ghost, and when people first saw just how big and beautiful a UCS Ghost could be and that it could be done in minifigure scale, they really took off with it. I would love to see an official minifigure scale Ghost from LEGO, and I do think that we are going to get a UCS Ghost sometime here within the next 5 or 10 years, but not at minifigure scale. I just cannot see a $1,000 Ghost selling very well. Maybe $500, $600 they could do it, but not at the $1,000 price tag. Truthfully, I have a hard time seeing them being able to do anything from any of the TV shows at $1,000. They're just not iconic enough. The first $1,000 LEGO Star Wars set is going to have to be from one of the 3 trilogies. And pretty much right off the bat, we can cross anything sequel related right off that list. But there are some pretty good contenders in the prequel trilogy for the first $1,000 Star Wars set. And by some, I mean 2. While there is a lot of UCS potential from the prequels, I think that most of them would not be able to hit the $1,000 mark. Like, for example, they'd probably want to keep a invisible hand at about the same size as the UCS Venator. And then it wouldn't really make much sense to have a UCS MTT at above like $300. Something that I could see being very popular though would be a UCS Turbo Tank at the $1,000 price tag or above. Now, I've actually made a whole nother video talking about why that probably isn't going to happen, so I won't get into it too deeply here, but essentially the pieces that they have right now just would not be strong enough to support the wheels on something like this. So the Turbo Tank is out on Buildable. What is not out on Buildable, however, is the Lucre Hulk. These things are massive in universe, and honestly it seems like anything less than $1,000 would be considered a midi-scale Lucre Hulk. To get an idea of what I'm talking about, here is the invisible hand, and here is a Venator. Now these are both to scale with each other, and this Lucre Hulk is to scale with the two of them as well. These things are huge, and I can't help but believe that a $1,000 Lucre Hulk would be really popular. It is one of the most iconic ships from the prequels, and lots of people want more Separatist stuff. However, I can see the Lucre Hulk being a problem as a space issue. I've never actually seen a UCS Falcon in person before, but just looking at pictures of them online, they are huge. There's a reason why so many people choose to display them vertically like this. Not everybody can dedicate an entire coffee table to their UCS Falcon. The footprint of this thing is why, even though the Titanic is significantly longer, the Titanic is a lot easier to display just because it doesn't take up as much surface area. All you have to do is look at the shape of the Lucre Hulk and realize that one of these costing $1,000 is going to take up a lot of space that a lot of people do not have. And what happens if you don't have enough space for something? You probably don't buy it. So I'd say Lucre Hulk, probably not. And there really isn't anything else from the prequel trilogy that I could see hitting the $1,000 price tag. So, time to move on to the OT. Now, the first thing that might cross your mind as a $1,000 UCS set would probably be the Death Star. This thing is like the definition of iconic for Star Wars, and there would be lots of AFOLs who would love to get their hands on another UCS Death Star. However, I see there being a few major problems with this, aside from the girthiness of a $1,000 ball of Lego, which we've already kind of touched on in the Lucre Hulk. I'm not sure how structurally stable they could make one of these. The Lego globe is huge, and already at that size, it's a little bit rickety. So what happens if you make this 5 to 6 times bigger? You get a lot less structurally sound. Personally, I think that the Death Star does have a size cap on it, and I don't think that that cap reaches $1,000 by a long shot. But there are 3 original trilogy sets that I do think are very, very plausible to be the first $1,000 UCS set, and I'll go through them in order of likelihood. Here at number 3, I can see a Sandcrawler making the cut. The Sandcrawler is pretty iconic, and a minifigure scale Sandcrawler would be huge. Making a monstrously sized one of these is very possible because BrickVault has made a beautiful model. And while it is very long and very tall, it is very thin, so space would not be as big of an issue as you might think. But it is the Sandcrawler, and the coolness factor, if you will, isn't all there. So while I can see it happening, I see a couple of different possibilities as far more likely. The second most likely possibility, I think, would be a $1,000 Tantive. It's iconic enough, and its shape is narrow enough that I don't think space would be an issue for a lot of people. I don't have much to say about this one other than it could happen, but I don't think that it will happen before the number 1 spot. And that most likely title has got to go to the Executor. The sellability is there. Everybody loves the Super Star Destroyer. There would be no problem selling a $1,000 version. The SSD is proportionally pretty narrow, so I think that you could get a situation much akin to the Titanic, where it's pretty dang long, but it's skinny enough that people can still fit it on a shelf. And then, of course, there's the point that it has been a very long time since we've gotten a UCS Super Star Destroyer, and there are lots of people dying for a remake. So not only does the UCS Super Star Destroyer have a great potential for a $1,000 Lego set, but it is also the most overdue for a remake out of any of these top 3. And that is why, personally speaking, I see the Executor as the most likely candidate for the first $1,000 UCS set. But I want to hear from you guys in the comments which one you think could be the first $1,000 UCS set. Did I even mention it on this list? Or maybe do you disagree with some of the arguments I've made? Either way, thank you for sticking around to the end, and if you stuck around to the end, then that probably means you enjoyed this. And if you did enjoy this, then you should probably check out some stuff on the end screen right now, because you'll enjoy that too.